What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel. Alright, I will preface this by saying that at some point along the line, I may cover Onslaught. I'm really not sure yet. I mean, I'm not really sure if I really want to cover that story in its entirety, and this video will tell you why, because the Onslaught saga is like the biggest event to never happen. Like, nothing happened in that. I mean, stuff happened, but it was just an excuse for Marvel to reboot stuff. But anyway, welcome to the rundown, guys. This is my series where I'm like, hey, here is a thing I enjoyed, and you guys should enjoy it too. Now, before we get into this, a bit of explanation. So, in the late 80s to mid 90s, Marvel's landscape was a mess. It was messier than my room when I was 15 years old. And I know some of you guys are looking around your room right now like, yeah, man, my room's pretty messy. but Marvel had plot threads everywhere. I mean, there were stories that Chris Claremont had left hanging and he just never wrapped up because he left like 5 issues into X-Men Volume 2. I mean, there was just stuff everywhere. It was absolutely insane. And so by this point, Scott Lobdell had taken over the title, but there are 2 characters that we need to worry about. The first is Nate Gray and the second is Bishop. Now, Nate Gray came out of a story called The Age of Apocalypse, and this is basically a story where Charles Xavier's son Legion had traveled into the past under the belief that if he killed Magneto, it would make life easier for Charles Xavier. The issue with this is that Charles Xavier jumped in the way, he died, the villain Apocalypse said, time to go, and he took over the world, or took over North America anyway. But during the whole Age of Apocalypse event, the villain Mr. Sinister, who had always been obsessed with, you know, a child of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, or I guess Jean Grey and Cyclops, that was always his thing, he had basically used their genes to create a kid named X-Man Nate Gray. And the idea was that Nate Gray was going to defeat Apocalypse, and his incredible powers were going to be used by Mr. Sinister so that he could take over the world. The problem with this is that Magneto beat Mr. Sinister to the punch, he tore Apocalypse in half, he set his plans in motion, and then everything returned to normal. It was weird. 1990s comics, it was weird, it was strange. But what this did is it allowed Nate Gray to basically emerge into the main Marvel universe. And the reason why is because he was insanely popular when he first showed up. People were just like, dude, this guy who's basically limitless in his abilities, he can do everything but warp reality. Like he's really, really powerful, and fans absolutely loved it because in the 1990s, it was all about high octane, super fast stuff. So anyway, so Nate Gray is just kind of hanging out in the main Marvel universe. Now, the other guy is Bishop. Bishop comes from a universe that's almost exactly like the Days of Future Past. I mean, like identical. Some event happened in his timeline. It initiated the start of the Sentinel program. The Sentinels started rounding up mutants and people with superpowers, eventually killed off a majority of them. The rest were just kind of thrown in internment camps. Eventually, the Sentinels turned their sights on humanity. They started imprisoning humanity. The difference between the Days of Future Past and Bishop's timeline is that in Bishop's timeline, there was an event called the Summers Rebellion, and that was where humans and mutants worked together to cast off the Sentinels. The problem with this was that there was this weird uneasy truce, but Bishop's whole gig was that he traveled to the modern day to find out who the traitor was that initiated the event that caused his timeline to come to fruition. And the idea was that Marvel was always toying around with it. Well, maybe this time we'll find out who the traitor is. Maybe this time we'll find out who it is. The problem was that this had been going on for damn near 10 years and people just stopped caring. So they were like, whatever, he's just a guy here. People shoot him with energy and he projects it back. Whatever. The harmonica song from Bishop in X-Men, the animated series, I will do the future. I will do that at some point along the line. But that basically kind of brings us to Onslaught. Now, with regards to the character of Onslaught, the way it worked like this, the whole story had its roots in a story called Fatal Attractions, because Scott Lobdell had taken over the title. Marvel was looking around. It was the middle of the comic bust. Like, comic sales were at an all-time low. Marvel was like, okay, DC is owned by Warner Brothers. They have corporate backing. They'll never go broke. We do not have corporate backing. No one is financing us. So if we don't make comics that sell, then we're just gonna go broke, and that's gonna be the end of Marvel. So what they said was, we are going to basically eliminate everything that's not selling. So they looked around, they said, okay, what's not selling right now? Everything but the X-Men. Literally everything but the X-Men was doing bad. Everything, the Incredible Hulk, the Avengers, Fantastic Four, Iron Man's Force Works team, the whole 9 yards. It was all doing absolutely terrible. So Marvel said, okay, fine. We don't do line-wide reboots like Crisis on Infinite Earths. We're just gonna do like a soft reboot where we're basically gonna kill them off and then reimagine them. Enter the Onslaught saga. So Fatal Attractions rolls around, and basically it's Magneto being a dick. He's just like, you know what, I'm just gonna be mean, and I'm just gonna go to all the mutants and all that kind of stuff and say, hey, if you want to join me on Asteroid M, then you can come there, because I'm just gonna like have my own base of operations. This led to humanity freaking out, believing Magneto was going to attack them because his base of operations was basically equipped with nuclear missiles. And so Magneto issued an EMP across the world, took out power to everything. The X-Men responded. They went to Magneto's base of operations. Magneto's like, you know what? I'm tired of you guys being here. You're becoming a pain in the ass. Like, here's what I'm gonna do to you guys if you keep it up. He rips the adamantium out of Wolverine's body. One of the greatest moments in the history of comics. Like, it'd be worth covering Fatal Attractions just to cover the story where adamantium gets his, or Wolverine gets his adamantium ripped out. Adamantium gets his Wolverine ripped out? It would be worth it just to cover that because it's such a great story. But Charles Xavier was watching what's going on. He's like, dude, are you serious, man? That's not cool. So he shuts down the mind of Magneto. Now, what this did is it allowed Marvel to basically go forward, reinvent Magneto as a character named Joseph, and he had no idea about his past. It was basically rebooting him, like a soft reboot for his character. Now, for however long, something like 20 issues or something along those lines, nothing ever came out of Fatal Attractions. It was just like, hey, Wolverine got his adamantium ripped out, now he just ran into the woods and he's Savage Wolverine or whatever it is, you know, animalistic Wolverine, didn't have a nose. So it was just like that weird thing going on. But eventually we found out that what had happened was when Xavier shut down the mind of Magneto, he didn't just like strip him of his identity and his memories, he absorbed Magneto's consciousness, like his memories, all that kind of good stuff. And so Magneto, hatred for humanity blended with Charles Xavier's frustration with humanity over the fact that mutants just would not, or just could not get along with humans because humans were just being dicks. And so eventually these two forms of irritation and frustration mingled with one another, and the Onslaught entity was born. Now, the first thing it does is it races off to this whole Sentinel production plant, and it just like takes over the programming of the Sentinels, and then doesn't do anything with them for like a long time. Then it goes to Jean Grey, and it's like, hey, Jean Grey, let's go hang out, because like she's in the middle of like changing clothes. And so like he takes her consciousness or whatever it is, like their telepathic powers allow them to go out into the world or whatever, you know, and Onslaught's like, hey, you know Xavier's dream of peaceful coexistence, right? And she's like, yeah, and he's like, that's never gonna happen, and here's why. And like he just takes her on this tour of like mutants that are being killed by humans and humans who are just being dicks, you know, and he's like, that's why, because people are just terrible and they're never going to accept you. And you know, and Jean Grey's like, no, I believe in Xavier's dream. Xavier's a good guy, I believe in his dream. And Onslaught's like, oh really? So like he shows her this old repressed memory that Xavier had where she was hanging around or something like that, and Charles is like, man, I really wish Jean Grey loved me because I love her. And Jean Grey's like, really? Like Charles Xavier loves me? That's so weird, you know? And so she's like, no, I still believe him. I still believe in this whole thing. All right, so she's got like the word Onslaught branded on her head because he's like, know my name, because she's like, who are you? She has no idea who he is. So it's weird. It's like this psychic brand. It's literally like a blue psychic brand of his name on her forehead. Now, while all this is going on, like Beast and Bishop are just hanging out at some place. They're coming out of some movie or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. But then like the Juggernaut just crash lands and people are just like, what in the hell is the Juggernaut? Like who knocked the Juggernaut over here? And Juggernaut's like, I got knocked halfway across the country by some guy named Onslaught. Now, Onslaught's next act is to basically like appear before the X-Men, because Onslaught's plan is like, okay, my original idea was to hit up Jean Grey because she's like the Phoenix. She's like really powerful, but she didn't want to side with me. Well, she's not really the Phoenix now, but it's like she didn't want to side with me, you know, and so he's like, okay, fine. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the X-Men. So he brings all the X-Men together. All right, at this point, he's still like, you know, in the form of Xavier, but he brings all the X-Men together and he's like, hey, X-Men. And they're like, what's up, man? And he's like, you want to go kill people? And the X-Men are like, nope, because we don't do that, Charles Xavier. We don't know what your problem is, man. If you're just off your rocker, you haven't had enough sleep, or you haven't had your afternoon nap, we do not kill people. That's not cool. And so Onslaught's like, okay, fine, you know what? Whatever. So like he just unleashes himself, and the X-Men are just like, well, man, that's weird. Like he just turned into this guy that's like half Magneto, half Xavier. Like that's crazy. And so like while that happens, like they go down and start looking through his files and stuff, you know, whatever. And they're like, why does like Charles Xavier have like, you know, like database files on Franklin Richards? And then somebody's like, well, you know, because he's that son of like, you know, Reed Richards and Susan Storm, like he can warp reality. And then there's all like, oh my God. So at this point, Onslaught has like Charles Xavier trapped inside of his body. All right, he takes off over to the Fantastic Four. He appears as like a little boy, like he starts talking to Franklin Richards, you know, and Franklin's like, hey, you seem really nice. So like, let's hang out. stuff, you know, so like they're playing games, doing whatever it is that they do. And then like Onslaught gets into the subconscious mind of Franklin Richards, takes over his mind, takes him hostage, and then like absorbs him, all right? The next step is he goes and he finds X-Man Nate Gray, and he's like, you're coming with me, and he absorbs him too. And so the idea of Onslaught is to basically like use Franklin Richards to remake the Earth, like to remake existence as he wants to, use Nate Gray to turn the entirety of humanity into like a collective consciousness or some weird thing like that, basically like make humans subservient to his will. And the best way to start doing this is to make a citadel in Central Park, New York. And so like the first battle, like the Fantastic Four are freaking out because like some crazy guy that looks like Magneto and Xavier stole their son. The X-Men and the Avengers are like, guys, we got to do something, man, because like this dude's dangerous. And so like they all go to fight Onslaught, right? So they're like, Onslaught, we're here to stop you. Dude, they get their asses kicked. Like right off the bat, he's just like, peace. I mean, they rescue Charles Xavier, but then that's it. And then Charles Xavier's like, dude, why did you guys take me out of Onslaught? And they're like, what are you talking about? We're here to rescue you. He's like, no, like I was the one thing keeping him in check. The one thing that kept him from just laying waste to existence. And now he's just gonna do whatever he wants. And Onslaught's like, yep, this was all a trap. The only reason why I even let you get this close was because I wanted you to be able to take Charles Xavier out of me so that I would have his powers and I would be able to be like not controlled by him. And so at this point, Onslaught has like all the powers of Charles Xavier. He's got the powers of Franklin Richards. He's got the powers of X-Man Nate Gray. All right. During this whole conflict, like we end up panning over and like the Watcher is talking to Apocalypse, right? And the Watcher's like, dude, Apocalypse, man, you might want to get involved. And Apocalypse is like, no, survival of the fittest. If they're too weak to survive against Onslaught, then that's their problem. And the Watcher's like, yeah, man, but like he's gonna remake reality, man, and that means that you're probably gonna die. And he's like, upon further consideration, I have decided to become involved in this conflict. So it's like the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, Onslaught, Doctor Doom is there, like Magneto is Joseph now is there. I mean, it's like everyone who's anyone. It's like the biggest party ever. Like they're all down there in Central Park and like they're all fighting Onslaught and they're all getting like totally wrecked. I mean, they're getting absolutely obliterated. So finally Apocalypse shows up on the battlefield, right? Like Susan Storm, Cable, like all these guys are like, hey, we need to like go into Onslaught. We need to find a way to like save Franklin Richards because if he possesses Franklin, he can legitimately warp reality if he can figure out how to get Franklin to use his powers. Because Onslaught can't like use Franklin's powers. He has to get Franklin to use his powers. And so because of this, like Apocalypse shows up and Cable's like, I'm gonna kill you, and like just immediately attacks him. Like right off the bat, he just starts attacking the hell out of him. Because remember, like Apocalypse rules the future in Cable's timeline. So Cable's like, I'm always on a mission to kill Apocalypse. As soon as I see him, I attack him, you know, and Susan Storm's like, guys, you gotta break it up. You gotta stop fighting. All right, you guys gotta stop fighting. You guys gotta be cool, man. Like, it's a party, be cool. So what ends up happening is Apocalypse is like, hey, I can help you guys get inside of Onslaught, you know, and everybody's like, no, because if you go in there, you're gonna like try to capture Franklin Richards, or you're gonna try to like kill Franklin Richards or something stupid like that. And Apocalypse is like, no, is this the face of a man who would lie to you? And so because of that, like, they're like, okay, yeah, you would lie your ass off, but we do kind of need your help because you're like the oldest mutant ever. Selene is not a mutant, and we need your help to pull this off. So they go into Onslaught, and Susan's like, hey, I'm just gonna stay out here and chill, you know, whatever. I'm just gonna hang out at this party because everybody's having a really good time and I don't wanna leave. And so like Cable goes in there and Apocalypse goes in there, and like as soon as they find Franklin, sure enough, Apocalypse is like, and now you die. And Susan's like, nope, I was here the entire time. Haha, see how clever I am? And so they grab Apocalypse and they're like, we gotta get out of here because we gotta find a different way to try to save Franklin. Whatever. So they end up leaving. All right, by this point, like Onslaught's forces of the Sentinels are just like wreaking havoc. Marvel's got to give Spider-Man something to do. So like the Green Goblin decides that now's the good time to attack Spider-Man and so on and so forth. So he's fighting him and trying to save people all at the same time. This is not Peter Parker, by the way. But what ends up happening is Jean Grey's like, hey guys, I have a genius idea. And they're like, okay, what's your idea, Jean Grey? And she's like, how about we like suppress the Bruce Banner persona in the Incredible Hulk and then have him go against Onslaught? And everybody's like, man, I don't know about that. And she's like, why? It's like, well, because it's the Incredible Hulk. What makes you think he won't attack us? And Jean Grey's like, well, you have to have faith. You have to have faith in what's gonna happen. So like she suppresses the Bruce Banner persona of the Incredible Hulk. So now it's just like rage. The Incredible Hulk runs up on Onslaught, punches the hell out of him, cracks his armor, right? And so Onslaught's like, how did you do that? And so now he's just like energy, all right? And everybody's like, yay, we damaged him. We successfully hit him once. And so because of that, Thor's just like dives into Onslaught and people are just like, what in the hell? Like he just jumped into Onslaught. You know, Thor's like, hey man, you know, and he just jumps in. And so everybody else is it's like, well, hey, I guess it's the only way to beat him. So like they all start jumping in, like the Avengers, the Fantastic Four start jumping in. The X-Men go to jump in, and everybody's like, no, this you guys aren't allowed in this party. This is not an X-Men party. The truth is that it was believed that if Onslaught were to take possession of a mutant, it would make him virtually unstoppable. It was just a reason for why Marvel didn't need to reboot the X-Men, because they were selling well. Why would you change what sells well? And so because of that, it allowed Marvel to basically kill off, quote unquote, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Iron Man, so on and so forth, Thor, reboot them, relaunch them as part of the Heroes Reborn story. Onslaught dissipates, and the day is saved. Meanwhile, Franklin Richards is walking around with a little blue ball, which is actually the Heroes Reborn universe that he created because he's got godlike powers. That goes into Heroes Reborn, which eventually leads into Heroes Return, and then so on and so forth. Anyway, yes. So the Onslaught saga is like the biggest event to never happen. Like, it was cool. Well, it was cool. Like, Sal and I had a conversation about this. The story was cool when we were like 15 years old. It was the coolest thing in the world. In hindsight, with like Civil War and House of M and like the 50,000 other stories that have happened between Onslaught and now, it's not that cool. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button to become part of the Rob Corps. Make sure you drop a like, and yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.